Hello and welcome to Welcome Home Radio. The waters in the mortgage industry can be pretty muddy, whether it's investing, leasing, renting, home insurance, or myths and misconceptions. Welcome Home Radio has the answers for you, the consumer. And now, to help you make the right home buying decision for you and your family, here are your hosts.
And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate lending and learning come together. This is your mortgage market update for December 16th. As it seems our history seems to be forgotten by so many, I want to remind you, 76 years ago today, the Battle of the Bulge began. And I want to thank all our veterans, past, present, and future, for their service to our country. Stocks and mortgage bonds are trading at unchanged levels this morning. The FDA approved an emergency use of the Moderna vaccine yesterday, and stocks are much higher earlier on in hopes of the $900 billion stimulus deal is close, may be passed as soon as this weekend. Retail sales are weak to date, considering the outlook of the stimulus package coming. Retail sales fell 1.1%, which is much worse than expected. With October, November retail sales were weak, this adds to a very weak Q4 and a gross national product forecast. The MBA released their data on mortgage applications, and we had an increase in overall volume, which is amazing. Refis and purchases are both up, but the purchase volume is up by 2%, showing an encouraging statement of public confidence in our near future. Even due to tight inventory, purchases are up 27% this year a home, and the home values seem to be on a slow raising trajectory. Last week, jobs reports underperformed, but this could be impacted by additional funds offered by the CARES Act for people to continue to receive additional unemployment allowance. The new stimulus package is still in discussion, but with job openings still out there, why are folks not taking jobs at this time? The hope of extending the CARES Act stimulus could be a strong push for the reasoning of not looking for a job. We also have another very interesting data point to consider. There is a rise in renters returning home to live with their parents in 2020. 50% increase overall and 75% increase in millennial renters returning home. This could cause several interesting scenarios for 2021. And on that note, we're looking at today key data points of 2020 and giving some opinions on what is the outlook for 2021. Joining us today is David Sims from 10 Talents. I'm so glad you're here with us, David. Thank you for coming. And as normal, of course, my good partner, Alan, and the head monkey butt of KVGI Radio joining us, Mark. Guys, welcome. Come on in. Let's have a great chat about our future here in America and what happened in 2020 and what could we look at in 2021. Want to first welcome you, David. What do you think about some of those data points we just talked about? And Mark, can we bring us all up to 4 screens, please? Everybody's muted except me. Come on in, guys.
There we go.
David, give us some data points, what you see, because I mean, again, millennials returning home, rising in refis and purchases, it seems to continue. The stimulus package potentially coming out by the end of this week. What do you see happening here, and what do you for possibly, in your opinion, see for 2021 in this case?
Yeah, so there is definitely going to be a lot of change coming up in the next year. We're seeing, take a look at, like you were talking about, interest rates and mortgages right now. They're at lowest you've ever seen. I just saw an article that refis are up 150%, and what this is doing is definitely driving up the housing market. So cost of homes are significantly rising, which is actually going to be good for the cities, municipalities, things like that, because it should increase in tax revenues. Unfortunately, this is also making it very hard for people to afford and get into the housing market, especially starting off. So I think you're going to see a lot more rentals coming up. Also, with those low interest rates, you're going to see a very interesting effect on the market, to where traditional diversification of having stocks and bonds is not going to maybe warrant the type of safety that people want, because as interest rates go back up, bond prices go down. So we're in a very high market with also low interest rates, and that's kind of a double-edged sword that can hurt stocks and bonds going both ways.
Doesn't the Fed seem to want to prop up rates for a while? I mean, they've all voted that they won't see a change until 2022. It seems like it's their impact that they think to keep rates low is their goal. And through 2021, we're going to see a zero cost of dollars by banks. And a lot of that does translate into great purchase rates for homes, but not only businesses and development of businesses. So do you see any opportunity for people to be on the lookout of, hey, this is the time we need to jump into the market? Because I don't see we can continue to see the rise of homes people are losing jobs. They're still out of jobs. They're not looking for jobs. And if the CARES Act comes through again, guess what? I think we're going to see unemployment still continue through March of 2021 at least, because they're being paid more money not to look than they are being paid, hey, you need to go find a job.
Yeah, absolutely. With government spending and the Fed handling interest rates is going to prop up the market for the foreseeable future. There's no crystal ball, but yeah, I would not expect rates to go up or market to really kind of worse for the next couple of years. Technically, with a Democrat president and a Republican-controlled Senate, which still remains to be seen with what's going on in Georgia, but the best markets have always been under that gridlock, because gridlock in Washington is usually good. The less that they can do, the worse it is off for everybody else.
Yes.
Which is funny that's the issue. What is going to be interesting is that, if somewhere there is another market correction and interest rates are already low, the Fed is not going to have any more bullets in their gun to really help bail us out or try to get the market corrections going. And so that has brought in the thought and, people thinking about maybe possibly would we ever see low negative interest rates? A couple years ago, I would have said that was impossible, but already in other parts of the world, in Europe, I think it was in either Denmark or Germany, they were giving out negative 0.5% interest rates on mortgages.
Denmark, yes.
Yeah, Denmark. Yeah, you buy $1 million house and you only have to pay back $950,000. And so, it is scary to think that we could possibly be in that situation, that we would go there, which would be very scary for banks as well as insurance and financial companies who build their, reserve funds and everything on just being able to earn those interest rates. So, I think you're going to be rewarded for risk taking for the foreseeable future, and the savers, the people in retirement trying to look for safety and things like that, are going to have a struggle outside of the traditional normal investments that you're seeing.
Now, David, I know you know my industry. You've been in it, and you're such a stable, knowledgeable person. And we won't go into your football career, but
3 seconds.
But I think there's an interesting data point I don't think people are looking at, and I'm very concerned with it. And it happened in the first CARES Act, is forbearance. And so to help people understand what forbearance is, it's when you are given the ability to say, hey, I can't pay my mortgage, I can't pay my student debt, I can't pay on this right now because of COVID or because of whatever situation. And it was easy to go into forbearance. But what it is, coming out of forbearance, if you went in for 3 or 6 or 9 or even 12 months, you have to come up with the money at the end of that forbearance period, the lump sum. It is not added back on at the end of the loan or the end of the student debt or whatever. And I think we're going to have, coming in 2021, we're going to have a forbearance market that, if those things come true, those homes are going to be called, that loan's going to be recalled quickly, and we're going to have foreclosures I mean, there's like 3.9 million people in forbearance on mortgages right now across America. That is a market for Alan and Realty, for you as investors or people that have the capital gains or liquidity to do that, to buy homes at a very cheap price coming out of forbearance. They don't want to stay in foreclosure. Those banks, those lien holders don't want to hold those. They want to get rid of them as soon as possible. Do you see the same thing, or am I just fascinating and looking at a crystal ball and it's getting smooth like Alan's camera is all the time?
So I definitely logically see your point of view, and I can see that as a logical conclusion. The two things that I would throw in there that might throw a monkey wrench in there is, one, with part of the CARES Act, people can take out $100,000 out of their 401k and retirements without paying the normal 10% penalty. And they don't have to withhold the taxes like normal, which would create a larger tax bill down the road. So some people may go and take that in order to pay back that forbearance, which is then just a tax ticking time bomb for them down the road. The other part is that there's already tons of press out there and pressure for Biden to cancel student loan debt, which is a false statement, because it would basically just be government paying for it / taxpayers paying for it, which would then make lending more risky and also increase the cost of school to do that. So what I would expect is that if the forbearance led to foreclosure, there would be a very loud chorus of people to get something type of executive order to change that, kind of like they did in 2008 when they were doing the loan modification program. I could see something like that coming back, where they then added that interest and that forbearance to the end of the loan. And it will definitely be ugly, as it usually is when they try to rush something like that. But I do see that is probably a higher probability than all of those loans going to foreclosure. Whether or not they can do it fast enough to help all those people, I don't know. But the one part you definitely, I think you're spot on, is that if you have cash and if you have the opportunity financially to be able to take advantage of these situations, there are going to be a lot of opportunities in 2021 for you to take advantage of that.
So I see investments coming on, Alan, being ready for with regional banks that are carrying these that went into foreclosure and they could be foreclosed on, being ready for those relationships to be able to sell those homes quickly for people, I'm sure is a great opportunity. But
I can tell you, back in 2008, or 7, it was really busy, and I did a lot of that, helped a lot of investors buy properties and, places like Frisco that were overbuilt a little bit already. And I'm sorry, Blair, it doesn't look, I can't do it. But
hey, there he is.
I tell you what feels weird right now to me, David, is, 15 years ago, I used to work in Mexico a lot, and there's a haves and have-not society down there. And I'm starting to feel that here in the United States. I think the people I deal with either have very little cash but have good credit and can buy, or they have more money than they've ever had in their life. They can't even believe they have this much money. Well, when you look at that, and 80% of America doesn't have $20,000 in the bank, and now we've got record high stock market, interest rates can't go any lower, the Fed's about out of ammunition, and you've got a new president coming in, and I wish him well, because I wish our country well. So talking to people out there just feels a little different. It feels a little bit like it used to. I don't want to say 2008, but I will. It feels a little bit like that. And I know they have safety things built in and all that, and things have changed and the way banks do things and stuff. But the people in general that I talk to, I'm not kidding you. If you have a beginner home buyer at $220,000, what they can buy is always old or needs repair. And
Absolutely.
They don't have any cash to repair. They have no equity to go and get a refinance, obviously. So that's not a good fix for them. So now some of these home builders are building, out in like Forney and, out in West Fort Worth, where you have to drive a long ways to get anywhere. and they're having those low priced homes. And last weekend I was at a complex. They let 30 homes go and they sold them all on Saturday and Sunday. And so there's a huge need for people that don't have money to buy a house. Veteran loan helps, FHA helps. But then you also have, to your point, the renters. The renter is getting ripped off. Rents are high. The investor landlords know they got them right by the shingles, and they're taking advantage of it. Nothing wrong with that. It's America, make money. But I talk to people like that all the time that just want out of renting and can't get out. And that's the part that seems a little equivalent to what happened years ago. So it just feels a little different to me, like America is getting to be more of the haves and have-nots, and that worries me a little bit.
That's a good point. And
I agree with that 100%.
I don't know if we're going to have an answer. I mean, you bring up our new president coming into office. What do you guys feel about you saying there's a change out there of have and have nots? What else, Mark? Do you have an opinion up there in Michigan? I mean, are you seeing something changes, or David? I mean, this is a potential reality here of new president. And like Alan, I want what's best for America. I want Americans to do well, but I am scared of open borders. To be perfectly honest, I am scared of a few things of flooding. I'm scared to death of this student debt. What David said, it's going to be the taxpayers paying it. It's not going to be any politician, and it's surely not going to be anybody not paying taxes. So what is the opinion out there?
Well, I'll start. You've opened up Pandora's box for a lot of questions and a lot of things that just.
And please ask your questions to online listeners. Please do.
Yeah, feel free to do that. I'm not even sure you can actually ever truly get the full answer on it, right? So, yeah, we got a new president coming. There's going to be a lot of changes. And if you look at our past president, current president we have, this is the first time in a long time that we haven't gone to a physical war. We've tried to end a war and maintain the war that we've been going with the last president, but no new war that we've had to go on. And now we've got a new president coming in that does not have the relationships that goes in. So what you're talking about is what's happening here on the home front, but it gets much bigger than that. It's the international stuff with the opportunity that he's going to open up the borders. That opens up a lot of things from visitors to the economy, to renting, to loaning, to businesses, to everything. And here locally, I can speak of a small town that I'm in here in Gaylord, Michigan, and it's, small businesses are striving. They're trying to just keep making ends meet. But I'll tell you what I have seen as a positive side of things, right? Yeah, there's a lot of negative. We have to wear a mask. Our governor, most people don't like our governor in Michigan. And there's a lot of laws and mandates that she's put in place that just have really, my two favorite words have always been common sense. I don't think she has any, but that's my opinion. But there are some businesses that I've seen that have gone past above and beyond to make it. And even though it's a fast food chain, and I'll mention the name, it's Taco Bell. It's a franchise, right? So there's still an owner there. There's somebody that's still trying to make it through each day. And he's like, well, okay, I got a fast food. So if you think about their fast food versus like another one here, it's Culver's. It's kind of a Whataburger, but upper North Michigan replacement. It's a good restaurant. Their staff, they were having 5 to 6, 7, 8 people on staff. Now they have 20, 25 people on staff. Why? Well, it's simple. They had to meet with the needs of the economy because people had to go and get food at a fast food. The only way to get fast food is a drive-through. So I can't just have 5 or 6 people on staff. I've got to up my staff. But here's what's really cool about what Taco Bell did. They decided that we're going to hire more people. Companies are furloughing, letting people off, but we're going to give you one great incentive to come work for us. We're going to pay you on the same day. Same day pay. And they are one of the few in the country that I've seen do it, and they've been doing it since March. And I've heard nothing but great reviews on how they do it. Now, Culver's on the other side, they're like Chick-fil-A. It's one line. Some of them have 2, but what Culver's is one line. 25 to 35 people on staff. 5 to 8 minutes is all it takes for you to go through line when there's 25 to 30 people in line to go through the drive-through. And that's to get your full meal and everything. They've done a really good job. And they have the same thing. Come work today, you get paid today. So they work with the economy. Here, we don't have what you guys have in your area where it's the mass of renting and leasing and all that jazz, because a lot of people up here own homes or they're more stable. So we don't have a lot of apartments that are up in this area, so it's not a whole lot of renting. Not at least not in my area. But it is sad that, like Alan was saying about businesses that are choosing to up the rent, and it's causing the small business owner. There's a company here that was in business for 28 years, and their rent has been the same through the entire time. And instead of raising the rent a few dollars up, they went up 200%. It almost doubled because the owner of the building could not foresee him paying his mortgage on his rent for the 17 buildings in there, 17 offices in there. He decided to up everybody. Well, guess what happens? 7 people moved out, and now it's half empty. And now he has to make the payments with less money. And he's going to continue doing that, and it's just going to go downhill. And that's the small businessman that made a wrong decision in a pandemic time. Could have changed it, could have been better. But that's my opinion, because he probably doesn't have somebody there that's guiding and mentoring him in that role.
There's a thing where if you're 35 years or younger, you've had everything. I know there's poverty, but I'm talking about in family life. I raised a millennial, and I'm telling you, she wanted nothing. And I grew up the opposite. We had nothing. So there's a whole generation out there that, we're going to get what we just sowed. They're moving back home. I thought I heard Blair say at record numbers. A lot of them have not ever had to fight for anything in their young lives. College was paid, or their school, all their schooling was paid, and that kind of a thing. So I think we're gonna go through a little change here. The millennials, to me, are very intelligent. I know a bunch of them. I sell houses to them now. Many are very successful, and it's hard to blame the word millennial. I hate that, because that's not fair. But what is fair is that they've really come up in a nice way with a lot of stuff given, and they don't understand deficit. They don't, everybody got $1,200 checks. Well, the government's got all the money in the world, a lot of people think. Blair said they're not even trying to get a job because of that. So, we're going to deal with that, and we can't pretend we're not going to deal with that. We're going to deal with that someday. I'm old, and I remember my first recession. I was young. It was 1987. I went to work one day, and I came home that night and had about 1/3 less of money in one day. But being young, you fight through it. You kept, hopefully you kept your job. 2007 damn near ruined me. But you fight back. And I just think that, I think David's point about people trying to take care of what they have, it's going to be more difficult than ever.
Well, and that's a great point. I think people do want to take care of what they have. And, we were talking about 2020, and I think it's a dramatic different year for a lot of folks. Me being a baby boomer, I am blessed by something I think David tries to teach in all of his customers. We took a 30-year mortgage and paid it off in 14 years. Now, it's a great story. We're very blessed, but we did it during times were difficult because we discovered, for us, it was more peaceful by paying off our mortgage as soon as possible, as opposed to doing the other things like taking trips or buying the next, my kids, we just got finished with Thanksgiving, and all 4 of our children are teasing us because we still have iPhone 6s. Now, it took me to get my wife off of a flip phone for 10 years. Now getting us, there you go. See, we don't look for ways to take care of our own business. And we're teased by it, but I think David has very good insights with this about, hey, let's take a 30-year mortgage. Let's pay it off in, 22, 17, or even 14 years. But Here's what we're going to do with some of that excess, and we're going to create other wealth creating systems, because you don't need the latest iPhone. I mean, my goodness, spending $1,000 on a phone. I told my daughter and my son-in-law, I think y'all are crazy. That $2,000 is well worth your children, our grandkids, something for them investment wise, as opposed to you having the most latest and greatest phone.
Well, here's what I hear a lot, Blair, to that point from the younger people. I can't get a house. I can get a car, I can get a phone. I can't get a house. They think of, the little things that make their life better, and they're looking at it differently completely. And
well, and
when I went to college,
Missy
was affordable. College was affordable.
Yeah. Missy is online. Missy, I'm so glad you're listening in. Please share any questions you have for us. But I guess I want to help and drag out of David his year over year success in understanding how to generate wealth for clients in ways that are unique. And there are things to look forward to in 2021. Again, lowest interest rates historically. So there's got to be ways to, one, let's refinance you. I'm saving somebody, I'm closing on a refi mortgage. I'm going to save them $1,000 a month. And it's just unbelievable. This elderly couple, they're 72 years old, both of them, but they're refinancing. It's going to save them money, and they're going to be able to take that, transfer it, pay off the mortgage sooner, plus put it in investment, take half and half. It just, to me, there's ways to go about thinking about it, as opposed to seeing renters just go home. Is it becoming Boomerang Kids the easiest, quickest way for us to answer my troubles, as opposed to facing them? And talking to an expert like David, to me, is a great adjunct. So David, take a moment, tell us about 10 Talents. Tell us about some of the things you've been able to do and talk with clients, and also how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So the crux of me starting this was that basically, wanting to use my God-given talents to help and serve others. Like we were sharing earlier before, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And we grew up
on a scholarship.
Yeah. Grew up poor, but didn't know we were poor. Unfortunately, my dad's thought process was, well, at least I can try to get you, I'll find the cheapest house in a good school district, so you get to go to a good school. And I got to go to school, at one time it was ranked the second snobbiest school in the nation behind Beverly Hills 90210. It was Churchill in San Antonio. So I got to see kids that, drove Vipers and Hummers and things like that to school. And I'm sitting there going, I paid for my first car. And so, kind of growing up that.
Okay. David, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You went to high school when they were driving Hummers? Yes.
There was two guys.
I feel very old right now. Alan and I feel very old, as opposed to, what were they driving for us? Delta 66 or Delta 88, 1966 model? Or, oh my goodness, I'm feeling old.
Yeah, and my first car was made before I was born, so it was a 1977 Chevy Silverado. So
there you go.
Yeah. So, I went to college, and I didn't make a good decision in the choice of where I went to college, because there was nobody to educate me. I went to a private school, and I was going there for athletics. I got my scholarship, but then coach was fired, and I ended up paying for 5 years of Baylor by myself. So when I came out owing $98,000 of student loan debt, my student loan payment per month was $1,700 before I consolidated. That is not an easy thing to do, especially when your profession is all commission based. So I went and lived at home. I hadn't lived at home. I moved out when I was 17. I actually went and lived back home, and for 6 months, but saved every penny I had, because I wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible, and made sure that I worked on, paying down my debt in a smart way. I always get asked, is like, okay, should I pay my mortgage off quickly? Or should I, extend it out because interest rates are so good? Mathematically, I can tell you that technically you're better off investing the difference than paying off your mortgage. But being debt free and having that mindset is never a bad thing. You're never going to go wrong paying off your debt. But sometimes it just depends on what you're sacrificing for that. So I talk to like a lot of business owners who are not taking advantage of all the different things that they can do from a business perspective of putting money away tax-free, saving them $50,000, $80,000 in taxes a year because they're trying to pay off their 3% mortgage. That doesn't really make a lot of sense in those situations. Or I have people that, hey, I'm going to pay off my house and that equity is going to be my retirement. Well, it's not as easy to tap into your house, down the road if you don't have income or if you have medical needs. So, if you don't have like long-term care insurance or stuff to take care of, and that is all equity in your house, it's not necessarily the easiest way to get to it. So it really, going back to what Blair was saying, it's really kind of a balance and taking a look at, okay, should I be, for young people, it's like, well, hey, I can barely have a savings account. How am I going to invest or put away? Well, I think every millennial should be putting money into a Roth IRA because that's going to be tax-free money in retirement. And every year you don't take advantage of that, you lose that money. So, whether it used to be 6,000, 6,500, there's, coming forward, like you can't go back and make up for the years that you didn't put money in there because it's every year you get that amount that you can put away. So, one of the things that I did was I always said I was going to save 20% of my income and make sure I used the rest of my money to pay off debts as quickly as possible. So it wasn't a sacrifice for me. Can I
re-say that somewhere another way, David? I think
yes.
that maybe, I don't know if this is impactful or not, but living within your means.
100%.
I mean, every time I look at a credit report and I see somebody driving, I got people that are renting. They got to buy a home. They got to buy a home. They got to buy a home. But yet they've got 2 car payments of $799 on 2 different cars. Instead of what we do, we don't value our cars. We just buy a used car and what we can use and drive that around until it falls apart and then buy again. Those are the things I think people need to look at, as opposed to, if you really have to buy a home, if you really have to do some things, a financial tool is great, especially with rates where they're at. But why are we buying cars or leasing cars at that unbelievable number? I mean, I just see it over and over and over. And I don't have nobody ever gives me a good answer. I don't ask it outright, but they do ask, how could I change this? Well, sell this car and buy used. Yes, go, Mark. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
He just gave us all the secret of wealth, and we missed it because he was muted. Sorry, you missed it, guys. It was one time. Right. That's it.
See you later, guys. Go bye-bye. No, so David had some really good comments there about business owners and changing and putting money back, right? So here's my take on some of this. And David, please clear me if you think I'm totally wrong on this. That's our opinion, right? At the end of the day, we're always going to have a debt. No matter what you do in your life. If you're in business, you're always going to be in debt. You own a home and you have a personal and you're married and you have kids, you're always going to be in debt. So these people that are going out there saying you could be debt free, I'm sorry, you're never going to be debt free. Could you be less debt? You could be less debt, but you're always going to have bills, Blair. You're always going to have bills. There's always something there. But there's some things that you can do. So I'm like David. So I learned this a long time ago, how I've been able to get things I want to achieve. And that is, I put money away as a bill. I make a payment towards a bill, even though it's to my account. So my wife has a 401. That's a bill that we pay. And every month her company puts money towards that. And every check we put money towards that. It's a bill. And case in point, it came out to be really good that we did that, because over the years, when we moved here to Michigan, there was a point there for about 3 weeks where we needed a cash flow. And we couldn't figure out where we were going to get $20,000 or $30,000 in cash flow that quickly. And we realized we have our 401 that we can pull in. As long as we can put the money back in there, there's no penalty. And we realized that. And then we got this, I forget what they call it, David, but it's a short-term loan. And certain employees can actually pull out their own 401 and it's a payment plan.
Yeah, they pay themselves the interest. Absolutely.
Yeah, right, exactly. And within 30 days, all that money went back in there, but we had that cash flow for what we needed to do. And then just recently, something we wanted to do, and it came up to where it's going to cost almost $8,000 And I was like, well, we can either go get the money, we can either wait until January, or we could do it now and then do a loan through it and spend, 60, 90 days and have it paid off. So we did the 90 days. And that way we're not out of $8,000 right now. But that's because we put money back as a bill, and we always put money towards that. And I do that in business. I have a savings account and I don't touch it. When I need something happens, I go back and get it. The other thing that I see in businesses is businesses are going out left and right because what the economy's changed. For me personally, my business started to fail when that happened because I relied on my business being 100% service. And when that service related became a halt, it was because other companies were having the same issue. And at the same time, I'm an expense of a bonus for them. I'm not their expense on their daily routine on how they operate their business. I'm the bonus. So what's going to happen? The bonus is going to go away. What for me is 2021 is going to be the pivot point of where do I go from here? It's almost like reinventing myself, right? So radio is sitting on one side, media is sitting on the other side. And I had to look at both sides and I had to go, okay, what am I good at? What can I continue to achieve? I've moved and changed my life for a nonprofit organization, and I've done all that. And at the same time, COVID happened, pandemic put right in front of me and my family, and I had to make some changes. And I sit down and I thought about it for the last month or so, and I've said, you know what? I need to reinvent myself. What was I doing 10 years ago that I got successful? And if that worked, can it work in 2021? And I've got to sit down with myself and decide, is my business going to go in that direction? If not, then David said something, and that is, and you, I think Blair, you said the same thing. So like, I'm on an iPhone 7 Plus, right? I don't need a new phone. My wife and I would love to have one. But one thing that you guys haven't said that we realized, and that is sometimes it's how we are related to our family and our friends and society and the community that we're involved in. My community is slow. Nobody wants new cars. Everybody's got a fixed income. Everybody's got fixed homes. They don't go out and spend lots of money. They get the basic necessities they want, and they just enjoy living life. So life here is slower. Where I was in Frisco, it's 10 times faster. So I realized I don't spend money on food. I don't spend money on gas going back and forth in town. Now I plan things out. I need to go to town. It's 15 miles. It's an hour and a half turnaround. So I don't go every day. I go once or twice a week, and I plan things to go out there. So I've saved myself at least $4,000 a month from all the expenses than I was back in 2019. And so where does 2021 live at? Well, it's a better quality of life because I realize that I'm always going to have debt. I'm always going to have some car payment or some house payment or some credit card bill or something. But what am I doing with my money that I have left over? That's the smart thing that I have to realize. I'm not ready to retire yet.
And David, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I've talked about the haves and have-nots, and 80% of the population doesn't have 20 grand in the bank. That seems to me a big market that somebody in wealth management could tap into. There's a lot of people, Mark gave a nice talk about his experiences, but he's got means. He's got the 401k he could draw from and pay it back. That's a blessing. That's smart on his part.
Right.
80% of the people, and a lot of them that I talk to, I helped 2 Navy vets move into a house, and they didn't pay a penny to get into it. That's a perfect thing for them. They had $90 of cash in the bank at the end. That was 4, 5, or 6 years ago. But there's a lot of people out there. It seems to me that if you're in wealth management, there's a huge market out there to tap of people that are 28, 27, 26, where I was in my job already for 4 or 5 years and working my butt off, saving money gradually. They're buying iPhones and a car because they don't see his house as a possibility. Student debts, mine was a whopping $5,000 back in the day. Nothing. Paid that back in nothing. But even yours was 90,000, and now it's even more than that, right? So there's got to be a big market to tap, and if that can get tapped, then who knows where real estate and lending will go? Because there's a lot of people out there that don't see a house as an American dream. They see it as a far-fetched idea, and they're forever trapped in rental.
Yeah, it's sad that they see that because it is definitely motivating to have a goal, to have that goal to do it. So yes, I know there's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, and unfortunately, trying to get them to do, move the mark is a hard thing to do. So I do a lot of 401ks with companies, and you'll see people that I can't even convince them to put money away where they're getting 100% return on their money, guaranteed. Like, hey, the employer will match your dollars, so put in your 5%. Well, Dave, I'm like, there is nothing in my life that I will not cut out to get 100% return on my money. Like I'd walk to work. I'd bicycle if I couldn't afford to put money in my 401k, but I was getting 100% return on my money, I would find something to cut out. But it's having that mindset of looking at 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, as opposed to today. And today with cell phone, high-speed internet, Netflix, that instant gratification is only being more and more fed. And if I had a business that was feeding instant gratification, I would switch to that. I'd make a lot more money because that's an easy one. I'm at the opposite end. I'm trying to sell 30 years down the road. Like, people won't know that I've done a great job for them until 30 years down the road. That's a very hard sell, especially with the millennial mindset, as opposed to the previous generations where nothing was instantaneous. Everything took time.
I want to step in. One of the things that I call this, and I told my children, everybody seems to be in a disposable mentality. And my son-in-law, he throws things out that he just got for the kids. They're not playing with it. Okay, so you throw it out. I used to give my kids the box first because that's what they love to play with, put the toy away, and then give the toy back to them 6 months later like a new present. It's the same thing. It seems to me that so many people are living disposable, and they're not. Good point. They're not able to understand that long-term effort, and I think it goes back to working toward your education. Is it possible there's some people that went to college that, they would have been better off at a skilled plumber's academy or something along that line, instead of going to college, creating debt? It was so easy for them to go where it was difficult for me to get to even go. And I think we've got this disposable mentality to the point that there's nothing hard to work for. I want it given to me, or I don't want to have to work as hard for it.
Yeah, they want to work 1 year and get promoted.
Right.
It's all the same stuff.
So, Alan, one of the answers to your point is, and not really to put an information thing on millennials, but a lot of mentality these days it's my money and I'm going to spend all my money. And then when I need the money, I don't have the money. And so that just gets them further and further in debt because they don't plan ahead on things that could happen. You buy a house, you need to have 20 grand sitting in the bank somewhere. Your roof could go bad. Your foundation could go bad. You could have a flood. All kinds of things you could have. And then they get into that debt of that part. But the other side of this is just, I feel like society doesn't pay attention to the common sense on things, right? So David's saying, go plan out those things for long term. But there's a lot of things that are short term, right? When these kids and these guys are growing up, it's their friends, it's the community they're in, it's the I got to have the latest and greatest. And it's the mentality of, I need to be in. And the only way to be in is to have the latest and greatest stuff. So I'm going to go spend all my money. The other thing that Blair was saying that I wanted to add on was, there are some people that they're looking at their kids for education in their future, and they're helping them in the mentality of saying, you need to save, you need to put your money here and money there. I can go back a year ago, Blair, and I remember one of my colleagues, their son and daughter were getting ready to go to college. I think 9 months apart from each other, as far as that I can remember. And so the son was going to some Ivy League school, a 5-year college degree he got. Then the daughter came up, and she had a choice. She can go into a trade, something she's been doing for about 3 or 4 years that she's fairly good at, and she could go to that trade school, or she can go to a 4-year college, get a 3-year scholarship, and the last year the family would have to pay for. And I got asked the question to the daughter, and the daughter was like, what do you think I should do? And I said, you should go to trade. College is not for you. You've been doing this whole thing this whole time. High school has not been the thing for you, but your trade and your work and what you do in the community has been. So go do that, because I think you're going to make a lot of money in that trade. What did she do? She went to school. And now, yes, pandemic hit this year, but last year she suffered the entire year that college was hard. It was not for her. So what did she do? She quit. And mom's now looking at this going, I don't know if I made the right decision to help my daughter. Well, it's never too late. I can look at one of my staff that used to be here, Megan, with KVGI Radio. Okay, 2 years. I kept telling her, go back to college, go finish your degree, because she needed to for her, and she needed to be the first one in her family to get there. And it was an opportunity she could do. But she wanted to work, and she wanted to go out there, and she realized that work's not everything. Family and friends and relationships are more important than work. So what did she do? She went back to school, and she graduates this end of this month, I think. So it's taken her 4.5 years to get there, just to finish out the extra 1.5 to 2 years. So what I would tell people is, if you're going to do anything different in your life to make a change, do it looking at your future, because your future changes everything you're doing today. You can't change 20 years from now, and you can't change yesterday. In fact, I always tell people you can't change today, but you can change today what happens tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, if you want to talk about instant gratification, you just look at the election that just happened. Instant gratification. I mean, it's a gimme society sometimes, and I don't know. I just, the fabric of how the country has been built with capitalism and stuff, to me is a little bit under fire. There's a lot of people getting a lot of free stuff. I had it. We stood in line for food and, the cheese and the butter and all that stuff at the county courthouse. That helped our family survive. I don't apologize for that, but it seems a little different now. And I think that the other thing that's changing, working from home, I don't know. Is that going to change? Is that going to go back? There's a lot of good things about working from home that really make a lot of sense for a lot of companies.
I think businesses realize that people can be productive, and they don't have to own a big building or rent out a big space. Yeah. And they're able to work remotely where they're at. I mean, my wife was going to retire that last January, and she's not. She's going to be on for another 2.5 years because the school district said, go work from home. You don't have to do this in accounting and work in a building somewhere. And that saves us money. And that money was put forth to pay off. And that's how we're able to get our 30-year mortgage done in 14 years. That was the final little over the hump stuff that we were able to do. And that was a goal of ours. But I don't see people setting goals. I don't see people setting, I'm going to work toward this, and I'm going to, as David put it, I'm going to sacrifice something else to make this happen. And that's what I don't think people have learned, or still having a hard time learning. I mean, I kind of knew we were in trouble whenever my grandfather, not my grandmother, told me, Blair, put 5% away no matter what. No matter what you do, 5%. Just do that constantly. Yep. And when you read through when I went to college, I mean, university, they were, 98% of Americans couldn't save in a year, anything. I mean, they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's a scary thing when we become so dependent on a government that it's supposed to be small, not big. And they don't do things right. I mean, the bottom line is no government does. And in God's book, it says, you want a king, he's going to do this, this, and this to you. Why do you want a king? You don't trust him. And I think 2020 has just proven that in so many ways. But we become so dependent, yet we don't feed animals out in the nature because they become dependent, but we do it for people here. I mean,
and David, a small thing I'm seeing from buyers is they're saying the fact they don't have to drive is saving them money, obviously, gasoline and toll roads. And it's affording them, maybe an opportunity to buy for the first time. And so I've got some of those people I'm working with, and I see that as a good thing. The other thing to keep an eye on, I think, is billionaires. There's a lot of them now. Didn't used to be. There's a lot now. And if they start buying up these big buildings and all these other buildings that aren't being used, that used to be used, then I don't know, to me, that's a sign that someday people will go back to working in buildings. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to own commercial real estate right now at all. And what's scary about that part is that it's insurance companies and other financial institutions that own some of these large buildings. And okay, how is that going to impact their bottom line? Because it was the only way for them to get any interest or type of growth on their money because interest rates are so low. All of a sudden you take that away, there's going to be something else that's going to have to drive, returns, which could be forced into the market, which could create more market inflation from a value expectation, or there's going to be some type of fallout from that. Going back to what you were talking about, I just bought a house, and for me, I didn't need to. It just kind of, the reason why it made sense was I was able to, Blair, what are houses going up right now in Dallas Fort Worth?
I'm sorry, say that again.
How much are homes going up approximately in Fort Worth?
Right now, in Texas, we average a 4.7% equity increase.
Okay, so I'll just use 5% because that's simple math. I was able to get a $200,000 more house, and my mortgage payment went up $300, so less than 10%. But on that extra $200,000, if I'm using your numbers, my house should be going up another $10,000 a year in value. So I increased my costs, not counting tax deductions, $3,600 a year for a possible $10,000 appreciation. Is basic, not counting tax deductions. That's basically how that works out. And so that, once again, using the interest rates in their house for that type of thing, that makes sense. Now, I wish I could say that I was always wise. I have not been. Especially when I got married early on, and it was like, I was living in a 700 square foot condo. My mortgage was $500 a month on those adjustable rate mortgages that everybody hates. I loved it. It was the best thing in the world for me. But then went and bought a 4,000+ square foot house for 2 people. We didn't even use the upstairs for 3 years until we had kids. That was a dumb financial purchase with the house. Like I didn't need to do that. And by the way, it came back to bite me when 2007 came along, and I saw my house value drop 30% in 1 year. But the mindset of why homes build equity is because it's forced savings. You can do forced savings without having a house. It's not as good because you are once again, rent tends to be a more expensive route going, but you can do forced savings either through, like you said, 5% of every paycheck, 10%, however you're doing it, and it needs to be a bill. If somebody asked me today, how much cash flow do I have at the end of each month? I have no idea. I pay every savings, every investment as a bill, and I then know whatever money I have left I can spend. And I don't look at that. That's how I operate, because of my income's going up and down. Everything, I could have $1,000, after I pay all my bills, or I could have $5,000. Who knows? But I know no matter what I spend, I've already saved 20% and paid all my bills. And so if I need to, eat ramen 1 month, that's what I'll do. If I have a good month, then I can do that. And my savings doesn't change. My commitment to my savings and investing in retirement does not change based on how my income goes up and down.
Notice he did say fried bologna.
Yeah. I've done those, the Tostines pizzas, the 99-cent pizzas. I got through college that way. But what's interesting is that I've had such swings in my income. I used to be in the mortgage, like you said. 2007 came. I took an 87% pay cut and had to start a whole new industry. But I never changed that commitment to what I was doing. And what's nice is, going back to it, is that if something was ever to happen, I have all those resources to fall back on. And I don't look at it that way, but I also know that it's there. And so, people don't realize how, whether it be, $10 a week or $100 a week, can build up for a long period of time, but they have to have that goal. And what's amazing is that people, like you said, people are saying, oh, I can't ever afford a house. Well, who told you that? Well, that's just what I've read. That's what I've heard. I'm like, okay, have you gone through those numbers? I talk to the same people in retirement. I had somebody come in a couple weeks ago. They're like, hey, I know I can't retire for about 5 or 6 years. Can you tell me what it's going to take? And I'm like, went through all I'm like, you could retire today if you wanted to. And they were just, the mind was blown. They were like, are you sure? And I'm like, walk through all the numbers and all that other stuff. And they were like, I had no idea. All of a sudden, they were working because they wanted to now, and not because they felt like they had to. And their entire mind shift changed. And so it is, I don't feel, I couldn't necessarily do it, but, I know a lot of my good friends, they could go to their parents and get good, solid financial advice. That was their source. Unfortunately, financial literacy has not been taught in schools for a long time. It wasn't taught when I was there. Teach somebody how a credit score works, how to balance a checkbook, things that common sense things are more important than, high level economics your senior year. But if you don't have those resources through friends or family, seek them out.
I've got to stop you. We're running out of time. So David, real quick, tell them how they can get a hold of you, how they can ask you some basic questions that you just talked about.
Yeah. So if you go to 10talentswm.com, you can email me. It has my contact information on there. I got videos on budgeting, saving for retirement, saving for a house, everything like that. Happy to be a resource for anybody. It's what I love to do.
Well, guys, I thank you so much for your time. It's been a blessing to have you on. And again, I think we might have another show to purely talk about budgeting and developing a plan for a home. I'd love to hear that plan from you if we get a chance. And Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm not going to be here next week. Alan's going to have the show on the 23rd. And to my knowledge, we also have a show on the 30th. Is that right, Mr. Monkey Butt?
That is correct.
Awesome. So we still got 2 more shows. Love everybody. Have Merry Christmas to everyone. And again, thank you, David, for your time. I'm Blair Thomas.
I'm Alan Pace.
God bless, and everyone have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.